Okay, I want to talk about our squaring off exercise that I showed you. And remember that the scientists don't really like this method, but it's a method to look at the volume of forage that you have out there. And what the question is, and what we're going to use today, is I want to ask you, how much area is it going to take to feed a ewe sheep for a day? And the way this works is I'm going to walk away from Brianna that's holding the camera here, and that she and I are going to decide whether the square that goes out that's equal to the distance between her and me and out like this would feed a ewe for a day. So Brianna, is the distance from you to me, if we squared that off, would that feed a ewe for a day?
No.
Probably not. Okay, so I'm going to walk off a few more steps. Would that feed a ewe for a day? If the answer is you're in doubt, the answer is no. You want to make it a little bit bigger.
Go with no.
Okay, so a little bit bigger, would that feed a ewe for a day?
Maybe?
Okay.
A little bigger? Yeah, I think that.
Okay, so now I'm going to count off my steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 steps back to Brianna, and my step is 3/4 of a yard in length. So I can calculate how many square yards of this particular vegetation community will support a ewe for a day. Now you should be able to take that up to talking to how many ewe days you have for an acre, and also all the way to ewe days that you have for an pasture that's a certain number of acres in size. So it's to get you in the ballpark of looking at the forage that you have out here available to you. Now squaring off can work for, you can say, okay, you can build a square that would feed a cow that you're trying to flush to breed. And certainly the square would be a lot bigger because she's got a lot more forage in there. You don't need to think about this in terms of pounds, and that's actually one of the traps a lot of people think about, is say, well, I need 25 pounds of forage to feed a cow. You need to think of the volume that's going to go into a cow's gut as much as anything. And it's completely fair to say, well, you know, boy, I'd like to have more to keep my cows on a higher nutritional plane, or I can get by with less if I'm trying to rough them through at a time that their nutritional needs are lower. So it's a ballpark method of being able to determine the amount of forage that you have available to you. And this actually works both directions. We started the discussion by saying, okay, we're going to mark off an area, that'll feed a ewe for a day, and we'll take it up so we'll know how much a pasture will carry. If you're going the other direction and saying you have a band of 1,200 ewes and you want to keep them out there for so many days, and you know the pasture is, you can calculate your demand and calculate the other direction and come down to realizing how much land and how much forage you're allocating for that ewe in that band of sheep. So, and if you come out and find out that you're only allocating, you know, 10 square yards, you might want to rethink about how you're going to stay there on the property or on that pasture in particular. Okay, that's good.